Picture this. Two people stand at an altar, bathed in light, surrounded by witnesses, exchanging vows of permanence, of eternal devotion, of a love that will defy entropy and time itself. This is the moment when destiny is supposedly sealed, when the search for the soulmate ends, and the life of true partnership begins. They are utterly convinced that what they feel is unique, powerful, and guaranteed to last forever. They believe this with a sincerity that borders on religious fervor. Yet for a profound and devastating number of couples, this perfect, shining certainty dissolves with the clinical precision of a cheap expiration date, often landing with cruel inevitability around the 3-year anniversary of that perfect day. Why? Why does the most intense, intoxicating human emotion decay with such predictable, devastating timing? We are not talking about simple marital complacency or two people growing apart over decades. We are talking about the complete psychological and emotional annihilation of romantic love itself, the raw, obsessive, chemical fixation that dragged them to the altar in the first place. Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher of pessimism and brutal reality, explains this devastating phenomenon not as a failure of character, but as a cruel, biological necessity. He viewed the entire structure of human courtship, romance, and marriage as the most magnificent, intricate, and successful deception ever perpetrated, the greatest illusion woven by the blind, driving force of existence. Before we plunge into the uncomfortable clarity of this 3-year clock, tell me where this conversation finds you right now. In what city are you experiencing this moment of brutal self-reflection? Now let us return to the dark foundation of Schopenhauer's thought. Schopenhauer argues that the universe is governed by a restless, aimless, unconscious force that he termed the will. This will is not rational, it is not moral, and it is entirely indifferent to individual happiness. Its sole singular command is, exist and multiply. In the realm of human relationships, the will manifests as the relentless, gravitational pull that we mistakenly call romantic love. This passionate, overwhelming emotion, the racing heart, the sleepless nights, the utter conviction that this specific person completes your soul, is, in Schopenhauer's devastating analysis, merely a sophisticated costume worn by the will of the species to trick the rational individual into performing the necessary, difficult, and often painful task of reproduction and family stabilization. The individual human is, by nature, self-preserving. We understand instinctively that permanent commitment, especially the profound sacrifice involved in raising children, severely limits our freedom, consumes our resources, and introduces vulnerability. The rational self would resist this massive undertaking. Therefore, the will must create an irrational, irresistible force strong enough to override logic, self-interest, and fear. That force is the intoxicating rush of being in love. Think back to the initial obsessive phase of falling in love. It is a temporary madness. It is a chemical hijacking that suspends all critical judgment. You idealize the object of your affection, seeing them not as they are, a flawed, complex human being, but as a necessary, perfect complement to your genetic deficiencies. The short man with strong genes is drawn to the tall woman who balances his physical profile. The clever but physically weaker woman is drawn to the strong, steady man who ensures protection. This is not about shared hobbies or philosophical alignment. It is, at its deepest level, the cold, calculating will ensuring the most robust possible combination for the next generation. We feel intense, divine passion, but Schopenhauer says we are merely feeling the species experiencing its need through us. We are pawns, manipulated by hormonal puppeteers to secure the future population. And this deception must be intense enough to achieve its objective. The intoxication must last long enough to guarantee marriage, guarantee conception, and guarantee the stabilization of the initial social unit around the new offspring. It is precisely this mandatory duration that sets the timer. Why 3 years? The intensity of the initial romantic illusion is chemically unsustainable. It is fueled by novelty, by high levels of dopamine, norepinephrine, the fight-or-flight hormone that makes the heart race, and extremely low levels of serotonin, which contributes to the obsessive, intrusive thought patterns common to infatuation. This state is physiologically akin to a mild mental illness. No organism can maintain this level of internal stress indefinitely. The body demands a return to homeostasis. But more strategically, 3 years is the biological and social window required for the will's objectives to be fulfilled. In the vast sweep of human evolutionary history, a relationship needed to be strong enough to persist through the chaos of merging two lives, through the demands of a wedding, through the commitment of shared resources, and crucially, through the vulnerable infancy of the first child. If the will abandoned its tools too early, if the love died 6 months in, the couple might dissolve, leaving the progeny exposed and the species' investment wasted. The will needs the powerful, blinding passion to last long enough to build a substantial emotional and legal foundation that cannot be easily dismantled even when the passion itself evaporates. It is the architectural stage of the biological construction project. The I do is the commitment to the foundation. The subsequent 3 years are the forced period of intensive bonding, building the emotional walls and, in many cases, introducing the infant that cements the structure. Then, the moment the mission is deemed complete, the moment the will judges the union stable enough, the offspring viable enough, or simply the biological novelty exhausted, the will withdraws its intoxicating chemicals. It turns off the faucet of illusion. The intense blinding light of romance dims, revealing the partner not as the idealized projection of genetic necessity, but as the ordinary person they always were. This is the moment of rude awakening, the inevitable confrontation with reality that Schopenhauer predicted. The moment the will no longer needs you to feel irrational certainty, it allows you to return to your rational, often critical self. What replaces the passion is not necessarily hate, but an unsettling cold indifference, a mutual sobriety that asks, "Who are you, really? And why did I commit my life to you based on a few years of high-octane delusion?" The very traits that were once charming necessities for the will's goals now become irritating liabilities. His strong, steady persistence now seems like stubborn inflexibility. Her lively, attention-seeking nature now seems like exhausting drama. The fundamental components of their personality, previously filtered through the glorious haze of dopaminergic love, now stand exposed, raw, and incompatible. Schopenhauer saw this transition as the essential tragedy of human existence. We spend years searching for the perfect person, convinced we are seeking soul connection, when in reality, we are simply feeling the primal biological mandate being acted out. We are chasing the will's objective, not our own happiness. And the heartbreak that ensues around the 3-year mark is the profound disappointment of realizing the universe never intended for you to be happy together. It only intended for you to reproduce together. The intense longing you felt for them was never personal. It was simply the species demanding its due. The vast majority of people mistake this cooling off for a failure in their effort, a flaw in their partner, or a sign that they chose wrong. They believe they can reignite the illusion through therapy, date nights, or desperate attempts at novelty. Schopenhauer would smile with grim resignation. The flame is not simply low. The fuel source, the chemical compulsion provided by the will, has been deliberately removed because its function is complete. What is left is not the grand architecture of a loving relationship, but the exposed scaffolding of a reproductive arrangement. This foundation must then be maintained if it is to survive, not by the passionate illusion of love, but by the strenuous effort of friendship, compatibility, shared financial goals, and mutual forbearance, qualities that the will never promised, and certainly never prioritized. The will provided the blinding speed to get to the destination, but provided no fuel for the long, slow, arduous journey afterwards. The 3-year clock is not just a societal statistic. It is the time limit on the will's primary deployment of romantic delusion. It is the moment the powerful gravitational field collapses, revealing the two separate, sometimes alien bodies that were briefly forced together by cosmic necessity, and the subsequent years are defined by the attempt to live together, not because the universe demands it, but because legality, children, and sheer exhaustion make separation too costly. The will ensures the cage is built before the bird realizes it has been trapped. The tragedy of the I do is that it commits the individual to a lifetime based on an emotion designed by the species to last only a finite period. We promise forever based on a feeling engineered for 3 years of maximum biological efficiency. The wedding ring becomes, in Schopenhauer's eyes, a chain forged by instinct and ignorance. The euphoria of the honeymoon is simply the sound of the locks clicking shut. You deserve the complete, unvarnished truth. Ensure you secure your access to all 3 parts of this painful revelation by subscribing and liking this video immediately. Now, acknowledge the depth of this reality. Comment below with the phrase, "I am the will's tool." Use the phrase as a badge of understanding and recognition. The next part of this analysis will shatter the comfortable myth of the soulmate. We are going to expose exactly what the will leaves behind when the illusion is gone. Prepare yourself for the exact mechanisms of the 3-year decay and the shocking truth of why your relationship became boring. Remember the moment? That moment in the sun, at the altar, surrounded by promises and soft light. It was a perfect, self-contained universe of 2. You believed in forever. You believed you had found the one soul designed solely for your happiness. But what if that euphoric feeling, that consuming, blinding love was not meant for you at all? What if you were just a magnificent biological tool designed to complete a single temporary mission? This isn't cynicism. This is Arthur Schopenhauer peeling back the curtain on the grandest, most beautiful lie ever told. A lie so profound, so necessary, that its expiration date is written into our very DNA, approximately 3 years after the vows. We are talking about the precise moment the will to life collects its fee and leaves you standing in the cold ruins of the honeymoon phase, potentially holding a child, and wondering where the magic went. The truth about this 3-year expiry date impacts every committed relationship in every corner of the globe. Tell me right now, where in the world are you grappling with this specific, existential realization? Let me know the city you're tuning in from.
Now we must delve into the mechanics of this brutal schedule. Schopenhauer, in his devastating clarity, asserts that this intense, specific romantic attachment is merely the highest concentration of the sexual impulse, cleverly masked and disguised by the genius of the species, which is merely another term for the will to life itself. The will needs to achieve its sole, unconscious objective, the procreation of a specific, genetically optimized offspring.
And the timeline for this mission is not arbitrary. It is surgically precise, dictated by millennia of evolutionary necessity. The moment of initial attraction, the blinding infatuation, the feeling that this person completes your very being. This is the will applying its most potent anesthetic. It floods the system with a cascade of neurochemicals. Dopamine, norepinephrine, oxytocin. It literally alters perception. The flaws in the beloved are not merely overlooked. They are rendered invisible, or even more dangerously, interpreted as charming idiosyncrasies. The will needs the couple to be completely dedicated, completely unified, completely incapable of logical assessment, for a very specific duration. This duration is approximately 3 years. Why 3 years? Because this window accounts for the crucial period of intense bonding required for conception, the 9 months of gestation, the initial period of postpartum recovery, and the critical first year or so of the child's life where dual parental protection dramatically increases survival probability. The will, in its magnificent indifference to individual suffering, demands a biological fusion so complete that the parents remain a functional unit long enough to stabilize the new life. Once that stabilization point is reached, once the offspring has passed the most vulnerable phase of its infancy, the will declares the primary mission complete. It pulls the plug. The euphoria vanishes, not gradually, but often with the shock of an electrical shutdown. The genius of the species withdraws its mesmerizing lens, and suddenly, the partner standing across the breakfast table is no longer the flawless, shimmering ideal you swore eternal fidelity to. They are a person with irritating habits, predictable flaws, and a distinct lack of the divine spark you once perceived. This transition is not simply a maturation of love. It is the brutal revelation of the mechanism behind the illusion. It is the moment the individual realizes they were never the will's ultimate concern. Their personal happiness was entirely subordinate to the species' utility. Schopenhauer argues that marriage, therefore, is frequently a sophisticated trap. You enter into it believing you are securing your own happiness, when in reality you are merely guaranteeing the will's reproductive success. The vows themselves, the eternal promises, are just the emotional scaffolding necessary to sustain the commitment beyond the point of reason. When the spell breaks, the ensuing disillusionment is disproportionately severe, precisely because the foundation was built on a metaphysical deception. People feel profound resentment. They look at their spouse and see not the beloved, but the instrument of their own entrapment. This leads to the mutual aversion and bitterness so common in the 3 to 5 year range of many modern marriages. The couple begins to question everything. Why did I make this choice? What was I thinking? They were not thinking. They were being driven. They were acting out an ancient, powerful script, convinced they were writing their own love story. This deep dive into the will's motives reveals a horrifying truth about our choices in partners. The specific and often peculiar aesthetic preference that drove us to one person over all others, the unique shape of their jaw, the timbre of their voice, the slightly asymmetrical features, is not romantic whimsy. It is the will performing a precise genetic calculation. Schopenhauer posits that we are attracted to those who possess complementary biological characteristics to offset our own weaknesses, ensuring the offspring inherit a robust blend. If a man is constitutionally weak, he will feel an overwhelming, inexplicable pull toward a woman of powerful physique. If a woman is too tall or too short, she will be irrationally drawn to someone who can balance that physical trait in the offspring. Love, in this context, becomes an unconscious, meticulously performed balancing act of genetic deficiencies and strengths. The specific desire is not for the individual soul, but for the most perfect possible composition of a new soul. When the will retracts and the couple finally sees each other clearly, stripped of the chemical haze, they often realize they have very little in common as conscious, intellectual beings. They were perfectly compatible only in the dark, primal calculus of their genes. This is the origin of the agonizing realization that many couples face, that the person they married, the one they fought so desperately to be with, is someone they might not even like as a friend. Furthermore, the cessation of the high-intensity illusion leads to a crisis of existential purpose within the relationship. During the intense initial phase, the relationship is the purpose. It provides the meaning, the excitement, the reason for existence. But once the will pulls back, that vacuum must be filled by shared values, intellectual companionship, and pragmatic utility, the very things that were secondary, if not irrelevant, during the height of infatuation. Most couples are ill-equipped for this transition because they mistook the anesthetic for the enduring substance. They were focusing on the intensity of the feeling rather than the quality of the companionship. When the intensity fades, many find themselves staring at a void, tethered by legal contracts and dependent children, without any compelling reason to remain together beyond obligation. This is the psychological consequence of the will's betrayal. It promised eternal subjective happiness but delivered only temporary objective utility. The will does not care that you are unhappy now. It only cares that the species continues. And in Schopenhauer's view, this realization is one of the most significant sources of human marital misery, the fundamental discrepancy between the beautiful, subjective illusion and the cold, objective biological reality. The great tragedy is compounded by the fact that society actively supports and promotes the illusion. Wedding industrial complexes, romantic media, and cultural narratives relentlessly reinforce the myth of the one true love as a guarantee of happiness. This constant external validation makes the eventual inevitable collapse of the chemical bond feel like a personal failure, a unique disappointment rather than a predictable, biological event. The individual blames themselves or their partner for the loss of the magic, never realizing that the magic was always a scheduled, temporary feature of the operating system, not a permanent part of the hardware. The emotional devastation is rooted in the betrayal of hope, a hope meticulously engineered by the will itself to ensure compliance with the species' mandate. The man who once saw his wife's ambition as fierce determination now sees it as aggressive egoism. The woman who once saw her husband's quiet nature as contemplative wisdom now sees it as passive laziness. The will flips the script, transforming assets into liabilities. It encourages mutual scrutiny and often mutual disgust, ensuring that the former fervor is replaced by an aversion strong enough to prevent the couple from repeating the reproductive cycle unnecessarily, thereby preserving genetic resources for the next round of couplings. The 3-year expiration date, therefore, is the precise limit of the will's generosity toward the individual. Beyond this point, the individual is left to fend for themselves, forced to reconcile their conscious, rational desires for peace and happiness with the cold, enduring fact that they were selected, utilized, and then abandoned by the blind driving force of existence. This is the moment when philosophy, or cynicism, becomes essential for survival. Many attempts to reignite the passion after this point fail precisely because they are trying to summon back a chemical and metaphysical state that the will has intentionally deactivated. They are trying to run software that has been deleted from the system. The energy required to maintain the illusion post-expiration is immense, leading to further exhaustion, conflict, and the desperate, often futile search for new partners who can temporarily re-administer the powerful anesthetic of early infatuation. The will to life beginning its 3-year cycle anew with a different partner, resulting in serial monogamy and continuous, though temporary, bursts of manufactured happiness. Schopenhauer leaves us here at the precipice of this despair, forcing us to confront the reality that what we call love is largely a sophisticated trick played upon the consciousness. The realization is shattering. We are not choosing, we are being chosen. And our freedom of will is utterly compromised when we are in the throes of romantic desire. We serve the will, and the moment our service is complete, the reward of euphoria is violently revoked. The great task of the modern couple, once the 3-year mark is crossed, is to determine if anything of conscious value remains after the unconscious motivation has departed. Can utility replace ecstasy? Can mutual respect survive the discovery of mutual manipulation? The ultimate tragedy, according to Schopenhauer, is that we only recognize the puppet strings after the performance is over. We were pawns, beautifully played, and then discarded by the cosmic genetic force. The greatest challenge now is not to retrieve the lost magic, but to decide whether the partnership can survive the brutal truth of its own foundation. This is where most marriages fracture, precisely because the operating system of love has been deleted, leaving only cold compatibility or sheer utility. If this perspective resonates with the brutal honesty of Schopenhauer's philosophy, I need to know your reaction. Affirm this profound realization right now. Go into the comments and write this exact phrase. The will has collected its debt. Your insight helps us continue this crucial dialogue and validate this shared human experience. I know this truth is uncomfortable, but understanding it is the first step toward genuine freedom. Join this intellectual journey, secure your place in this community of thinkers, and hit the subscribe button. You are choosing strategy over illusion. In the next and final part of this series, we will move past the diagnosis of despair and explore the only viable path forward when the will to life steps away. We will discuss exactly how to build a partnership that thrives, not on temporary euphoria, but on a foundation of profound, cynical truth. Do not miss what comes next. Imagine looking across the dinner table at the person you swore eternity to, and suddenly realizing you are staring at a perfect stranger. The light that illuminated them, the irresistible glow that made them seem like the only being in the universe, has dimmed to a faint, indifferent flicker. The laughter is forced. The passion has evaporated. And the cruelest part? It was not a flaw in your character, nor a mistake in your choice. It was an appointment made by the universe itself, a pre-programmed expiration date scheduled for precisely 3 years after you said, "I do." Schopenhauer insists that this moment, this cold realization of indifference, is the inescapable conclusion of every romance, the final curtain call after the will has achieved its biological imperative. We arrive now at the devastating climax of the Schopenhauerian argument, the revelation that the ecstasy of early love was nothing more than an elaborate chemical camouflage designed to make you perform a vital, species-preserving duty. The 3-year mark is not an arbitrary number. It represents the approximate biological window necessary to conceive, stabilize the immediate environment for the gestation period, and ensure the initial survival of the offspring. Once the torch has been passed, once the species' victory is secured, the elaborate, intoxicating illusion is ruthlessly withdrawn. Before we confront this final, devastating truth of our existence, I need to know, from which city are you currently listening to this philosophical dissection of the human heart? Let me know where this stark reality is echoing today. The tragedy begins the moment the will pulls back the veil. The individuals, previously transfigured into divine, necessary halves of a greater whole, suddenly see each other clearly for the first time. The flaws that were previously charming quirks, the messy habits, the minor neuroticisms, the fundamental differences in worldview, are no longer amusing deviations from perfection. They are glaring, irritating defects. The person they fell in love with, the idealized projection, never existed. They were merely the vessel, the most compelling vehicle the will could construct to ensure a specific genetic combination. The profound intimacy of the early years suddenly feels like an invasion, a necessary inconvenience now paid for. Schopenhauer argues that the resentment that begins to bloom around the 3-year mark is not simple annoyance. It is existential fury. It is the individual human intellect recognizing that it has been brutally tricked by its own internal machinery. The conscious mind, which yearned for eternal spiritual connection, was merely the unwitting servant of a blind, insatiable biological master, the will to live. The passion was never about him or her. It was about them, the future generation. The disappointment is therefore twofold: the realization that the partner is imperfect, and the far more painful realization that the lover himself was a puppet, his deepest feelings reduced to chemical compulsion. This leads to the question of why, if the illusion is dead, do most couples remain married? Schopenhauer, with his characteristic pessimism, offers several cold, rational reasons, none of which involve rekindled passion. First is inertia. Breaking a marriage is a complex, financially catastrophic, and socially disruptive event. It often seems easier to endure the quiet misery than to face the loud destruction of separation. Second is shared utility. If children exist, the relationship shifts from a romantic partnership to an economic and logistical enterprise focused on raising the offspring. The purpose of the union is fulfilled, and the maintenance of the unit becomes a matter of rational agreement, not affection. Third is societal pressure. Marriage is a social contract guaranteed by the state, designed to stabilize society. The individual's disillusionment is always secondary to the stability of the collective. The true Schopenhauerian marriage, the one that endures past the death of love, is not a passionate fusion but a truce of mutual recognition. It is a relationship built not on intoxicating illusion but on sober assessment. The individuals acknowledge that they were duped, they accept the resulting disappointment, and they choose to continue sharing their burdens because it is the most logical, least painful path forward. The relationship transforms from a feverish romance into a rational friendship, often one tinged with melancholy and silent resignation. The individuals learn to tolerate each other, to manage their expectations downward, and to seek their true meaning and solace in areas outside the marriage, often in philosophy, art, or solitary intellectual pursuits, which Schopenhauer posits as the only true escape from the will's tyranny. The genius of Schopenhauer's observation lies in his understanding that the destruction of love is self-contained. The will doesn't care about the happiness of the individual, only the reproduction of the species. Once the specific, necessary combination has been achieved, the will swiftly moves on, seeking the next pair of unsuspecting individuals to ensnare with its intoxicating temporary illusion. The passionate lover of 3 years ago becomes the emotionally exhausted individual of today, sentenced to either cold resignation or the pursuit of a new, equally doomed passion, restarting the cycle of illusion and despair. Think of the individuals who attempt to recapture that initial explosive passion. They seek external stimulation, new partners, new sources of manufactured ecstasy. Schopenhauer would see this as the individual desperately trying to summon the will back into service, begging for the return of the blissful blindness. But the will is pragmatic. It only focuses its tremendous energy where its objective is unmet. If the biological mandate is satisfied, attempts to force passion are futile, resulting only in exhausted repetition, a pale imitation of the original, potent deception. This philosophical perspective forces a brutal question. If love is just a trap, is there any room for genuine connection? Schopenhauer answers yes, but only after the illusion of romantic love has been shattered. The connection that survives the 3-year mark is the connection of sympathy, a shared understanding of the misery of existence. True empathy arises not from shared passion, but from shared suffering. When two people understand that they are fellow victims of the relentless, irrational will to live, they can forge a connection based on compassion and intellectual companionship, rather than the desperate, self-serving drive of sexual love. This connection, Schopenhauer suggests, is quiet, stable, and deeply moral, precisely because it is not biological. It is an act of the detached intellect, a conscious choice to offer solace. The distinction is crucial. Romantic love, eros, is inherently selfish. focused on personal fulfillment and biological perpetuation. It is a violent, necessary deception. True, enduring affection, agape in a philosophical sense, is selfless, built on the recognition of the other's suffering and the mutual agreement to alleviate that pain through rational cohabitation. When the couple shifts from saying, "You complete me," the will's lie, to, "We will endure this misery together," the intellect's truth, they achieve the only form of sustainable partnership Schopenhauer allows. The most tragic outcome is the refusal to accept this reality. Many remain trapped in the ghost of the illusion, constantly comparing the reality of their present relationship to the intoxicating, manufactured fantasy of their past. They resent their partner for failing to sustain a divine perfection that was chemically impossible from the start. They fail to forgive the partner for being merely human, and by doing so, they miss the opportunity for true, rational connection, condemning themselves to a life of quiet disappointment, forever seeking the phantom limb of romantic ecstasy that the will has already severed. Schopenhauer's lesson is therefore one of profound, dark acceptance. Recognize the trap. Accept that the most intense feelings were not yours, but the species. Forgive your partner for being a flawed individual, and more importantly, forgive yourself for being an instrument. Only when you shed the ego's demand for eternal ecstatic fulfillment can you begin to build a relationship based on true, unromanticized reality. The death of love after 3 years is not a failure of character. It is the scheduled transition from biological servitude to intellectual freedom. The final irony, the definitive Schopenhauerian conclusion, is that the only way to find enduring peace within a committed relationship is to stop searching for love altogether. Stop seeking the passionate high, stop demanding the ecstatic validation, and instead focus on the rational virtues: stability, kindness, mutual support, and intellectual understanding. The quiet companionship that replaces the fiery passion is the only truly human connection, uncontaminated by the savage reproductive dictates of the will. The person who understands this transition is liberated, no longer bound by the illusion. The marriage may not be joyful, but it will be true. And for the philosopher, truth is the highest form of peace. We have now dissected the brutal logic of existence, confirming that the initial blinding intensity of passion was merely a glorious and necessary lie. This truth is painful, but crucial for anyone seeking to move past the guaranteed disillusionment of the 3-year mark. We believe that confronting this painful reality head-on is the path to genuine self-mastery and peace. I need you to confirm your commitment to this path of difficult truth. Take a moment right now and place this specific phrase in the comments below. I choose truth over illusion. Let the universe know where you stand. Now, if this deep, unflinching look at the human condition has resonated with your experience or challenged your previous beliefs, you must join this community. We are building a fortress of understanding against the chaos of the world. Subscribe immediately and engage with this content. You deserve to know these answers, and hitting that like button ensures that the algorithm shares this vital philosophical wisdom with others who need to hear it. This is how we push back against the lies of romantic fantasy. And remember, the exploration of the will's tyranny is far from over. Next week, we delve into the core mechanisms of control, exploring the single most devastating reason why almost every person you admire finds themselves paralyzed by indecision and regret. Prepare yourself for the analysis of the Great Hesitation. You cannot afford to miss this. Click that notification bell now to ensure you receive this next crucial piece of philosophical self-defense.